Demokratie. Europa ist eben viel mehr.
Zusammenarbeit zwischen den Völkern.
Freedom.
Bürger der Europäischen Union.
The violinist Anja Bukovec is a star in her native Slovenia. But she's also made a name for herself beyond the country's borders. She won her first big competition in 2004, the year her country joined the European Union. She says that since then this former Yugoslav republic has been going through fundamental changes. She elaborates that the Slavic melancholy was ever present in Slovenia. But because of the developments of recent years, people don't seem to have the time to be melancholy. It's just like we remembered it. Mountains and lush green countryside. We came to Slovenia once before, over a decade ago, before it joined the European Union. Back then, we asked people about their hopes and expectations for the future. This time, we want to find out what's become of those hopes and expectations. Idyllic, conservative, orderly. Slovenia is considered a model state. It was the first new member to introduce the single European currency, the euro. In a country only half the size of Switzerland, all roads lead to the capital, Ljubljana. We too shall return to the capital in the course of our travels. From Ljubljana, you can drive almost anywhere in the country in an hour or less. We'll be visiting places that are almost unknown outside Slovenia, a nation of just 2 million people. Mateja Knific works as a secretary. Every afternoon she drives home to the northern town of Krajina after 8 hours in the office. Once she gets home, she has to look after her family. Life, she says, is a non-stop grind. She reveals that she only earns 600 euros a month, and the new currency has made everything 2 or 3 times more expensive than before. She thinks wages and salaries are much too low in Slovenia. Many people have to live on the poverty line. And the euro is also to blame for the high unemployment. We met up with Mateja in the year 2000. Back then, she ran a little shop for truckers. Eventually, she had to close the shop because it wasn't doing well enough. Her income back then was low, but she was much more optimistic. Even if life is hard, at least Slovenia is a safe country, Mateja said at the time. She talked about getting married and having children, and a successful career. Just a few days later, Mateja made part of that dream come true, marrying truck driver Dario Dauch in a fairy tale white wedding. To this day, she can remember every detail of the celebrations. And she wasted no time in taking the next step in her plans. we meet up with Mateja and her young family outside the village church where she and Dare got married. They haven't been here for a long time. They say their greatest achievements since then are their two boys, Ruk and Bor. But they have trouble finding enough time for the family. Dare feels that time has just flown. They built a house and started a family. At first, they thought their lives would calm down after that. But on the contrary, life has been nothing but work. All that matters is work. Dare tells us he hasn't been able to find the time to install the balcony railings in the 10 years since they moved in. The family is constantly under pressure. It might not help that Dare's business is right next door, a car repair shop with 2 staff. He'd have preferred to get a workshop closer to town, but he says the prices were astronomical. Dare sums up the effects of his country's EU membership.
A
lot has changed since then. Huge shopping centres have sprung up all over the place, for instance, and people have better cars than they used to. Dare admits that some things have got easier too. For example, getting papers from the authorities. But one thing hasn't changed, he points out. They scraped by in the old days, and they're scraping by now as well.
Težko pa govorimo samo o življenju, kaj se je spremenilo. Živeli smo prej, pa živimo zdaj.
Dare has his own way of escaping the pressures of everyday life. After work, he closes his garage door and settles in with his friends for an evening of Oberkreiner music, one of Slovenia's most popular exports. We continue our journey heading east to Slovenia's biggest company, Gorenje. Even on our first visit, we thought the factory complex was huge, and it's grown a lot since then. When the Yugoslav Federation broke up after the fall of communism, so too did the market for Gorenje's household appliances. But the company succeeded in making a fresh start, and the formerly state-run enterprise has been expanding for years now. It exports almost 90% of its products, and Europe is its biggest market by far. We've arranged to meet Polona Bobinac, who remembers us from 10 years ago.
Hallo, guten Tag. Schön, Sie nach 10 Jahren wiederzusehen. Willkommen bei uns.
More than a decade ago, Polona showed us Gorenje's latest refrigerators. She's climbed the career ladder since then. She's now in charge of sales, and she's also married to the chairman of the board. She spent the last 10 years in the fast lane and answers all our questions with smooth confidence. Polona stresses that since 2004, all their appliances have been marked Made in Europe, another important sales factor. She says it's seen as a mark of quality from the European Union. But Europe is not enough. The company has invested in a state-of-the-art logistics center and plans to expand worldwide to countries like China, Brazil, and the United States. We travel on to Škofja Loka. Anja Bukovec wants us to be there for a special occasion. On the way, she tells us how hard it was for her to move back to Slovenia after living in Cologne for several years. Anja found the people in Germany much more approachable than the Slovenes, saying it was much easier to meet people and organize something or get involved. But overall, she thinks things are gradually picking up and doesn't believe people have lost anything. She thinks old traditions may actually become more valued, more popular in some parts of Slovenia, especially in smaller towns and villages. The magic moment arrives. Anja Bukovec is presented with her new instrument by violin maker Daniel Musek.
Oh, se bom pa lepo probala. Pridi k mamici.
Musek spent 4 years honing his skills in the Italian city of Cremona, home of the Stradivarius. He says Slovenia's accession to the European Union has made his work easier and improved his career chances.
If I compare us with Italians, I think we have more European mentality than they. There is much more order in Slovenia than in Italy, so I think we are different. We're probably much more like Austrians in mentality, but not something in between. Maybe not so conservative.
Our journey continues through breathtaking vistas. We get the sense that even in the most remote valleys, the Slovenian spirit of entrepreneurship is alive and well. These steelworks in Store have stood here since the mid-19th century. The plant manager, Marian Maćkošek, is the same man we met here a decade ago. We remember him as a cool, calculating, matter-of-fact manager. He says the past decade has been hard work, but now not only his own factory, but his entire country has successfully hooked up with Europe.
What I said 10 years ago, European community is our future. And today I must say yes, because with open borders, with free economy, practically this is destiny for small economy, because Slovenia is small economy, and our economy must be open, and at the same time open for import and export.
Since our last visit, production at the plant has doubled, along with the number of staff. The economic crisis year of 2009 exposed the company's dependence on the euro and the EU. Business was disastrous, says Maćkošek. But since its main source of custom, the German automobile industry, started to recover, so too has business for the steelworks. We show Maćkošek the film from our last encounter, when he enthusiastically presented his business philosophy.
Our philosophy is very clear. In this moment, it's good speed 200 km per hour. But tomorrow, it's good 300 km per hour. And we work in this moment very hard with people, how we prepare a company and our employees to this new speed 300 km per hour.
I must say, now we are on speed more than 300 kilometers, but maybe this speed will be not enough tomorrow, because everybody like to grow and find the best solution for him on the market, and this is practically never-ending story.
visit the Triglav National Park. It's raining this time. But when we met Maria Marquez in 2000, the sun was shining. Back then, she was a tireless campaigner for the environment and an employee of Slovenia's biggest nature reserve.
She seemed sure that one of Slovenia's greatest assets was its very intact environment.
And she added that this was the capital the country could bring to the EU. Maria rose from simple employee to director of the National Park and recently moved to the Environment Ministry. There, she asserts confidently, she can reconcile the needs of the environment and agriculture. She says EU membership has been good for the environment. But she adds that it has always been in better condition than in other Eastern European countries.
Slovenia set its sights on the EU and made it. She feels that it's been a very educational and successful process because the nation has achieved a lot of things, especially in the fields of agriculture and the environment. It's been able to bring these two aspects together to the benefit of both the environment and the economy.
Marquez says the Slovenians have always had a marked love of nature. Brussels pumped a lot of money into Slovenia for environmental and agricultural projects. Farmers have been among the main beneficiaries of structural funds for remote and unprofitable land. Today, more than a third of the country is protected. Our journey takes us through a country of the most diverse landscapes. Goriška Brda in the west of Slovenia. We meet Aleš Kristancic, the secret king of a region that claims to produce the country's finest wines. The wine grower, who struck us as somewhat eccentric the last time we met him, now inspects his vines on a motorbike. In the former Yugoslavia, his father was a supplier to President Tito. When Slovenia declared independence in 1991, Aleš had to go looking for new customers. On our last visit, Aleš was bitter about what he saw as unfair competition from the European Union.
For every wine, when we export, we need analysis, super analysis. We must find an importer. We must make all this for every time, for every wine, special documents. No, for that we are not in the same positions like maybe our neighbors here on Italian side. No.
He says the bureaucratic side of things has improved, but he still feels at a disadvantage to his more established neighbors.
They are asking you, you have also grape, you produce also wine, and we are the, you know, our culture of Europe, Central Europe, is the oldest culture, the really culture, not the hunter's culture, okay? And you have to convince, and you have the bad image. Italians are starting from 0, French people from +10 and so on, and you are -100. You know, when you was there 10 years ago, I already had in the cellar some bottles. Today, they are on the market.
Kristancic has invited some friends around to celebrate a successful business deal. More than 80% of his wines are exported now. He says his work has always been about quality, not quantity.
He says all Slovenian agriculture should follow his example.
The future of Slovenia, we have, look, so nice opportunity if we will know to use it. Could you imagine the Slovenian farmer? He have maybe 25 cows, 26. I know one which has 32, but the cows have a name. You understand? The cows knows the bull, okay? The milk is like, you know what? Is have a smell, not the taste, the smell, okay? We have just one problem, that we don't understand that to have this type of agriculture is the only future.
This is the Gulf of Piran. The EU frontier may appear peaceful, but the Gulf is a bone of contention between Slovenia and Croatia. Both sides lay claim to the territorial waters, and with them access to international shipping routes. The dispute is now the subject of international arbitration. We return one last time to Slovenia's Baroque jewel, Ljubljana. We have an appointment with Nikolaj Jeffs, essayist and cultural philosopher at the capital city's university. Jeffs, who grew up in England, says Slovenians have an almost obsessive desire to dissociate themselves from the rest of the Balkans.
It's not self-evident that Slovenia is part of Europe, so there is a need to constantly reaffirm this. You know, there is a need to somehow convince the listener, so to speak, and this would be a West European listener, that we, Slovenes, are nonetheless Europeans.
The son of a Slovenian mother and an English father, Jeffs is the first of our hosts who is still sceptical of the European Union. He says Slovenia has been in a big vacuum since it introduced the euro. He says people have bowed to the demands of politics for more than 20 years.
We all have to just be patient, tighten our belts, so to speak, wait, and once we are independent, once we are internationally recognized, once we are a member of the EU or NATO or anything else, then things will be fine. Well, at the moment it seems that Slovenia has run out of projects.
Run out of projects? The fact is that the Slovenians reached their self-declared goals far quicker than most other new member states. The final leg of our journey takes us to a place that has not changed through the years. Križna Jama is the name of this cave system. It's fascinated Mitja Prelovšek since he was a child. And it is here that we finally find a touch of that increasingly rare phenomenon, Slavic melancholy.
He
says these caves mean a great deal to him. He really enjoys exploring them. And the caves are the only place where he can find peace and quiet. In the dark, he's on his own, and he has to take care of himself. He finds that fascinating. Idyllic and unspectacular, but at the same time, different and mysterious. We've come to the end of our journey, and have more or less the same impression as last time. Slovenia is not a country whose qualities are obvious at first glance. Mitja says that Slovenia may well be just as unknown to most Europeans as these caves are to most Slovenes. Only those who really take the trouble to explore the country will actually get to know it.